am Nat.
And I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting twice daily at 12 noon and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, we're on at 5 p.m., and we have interviews dispersed throughout the week. We talked to Jason Levine last night, or we broadcast the interview last night.
Yes.
It was, I really liked it. So
Yes, it was great. And tomorrow, Kathy Flett's interview will be coming out. So any women out there, or anybody really that wants to look into new and interesting strategies, then watch out for that one as well. I will announce the trailer and everything on X tomorrow.
yeah, and I kind of wanted to go into something right off the bat. I know there's been a little bit of division within Alberta independence. We're kind of on the outside looking in. I mean, we talk about this every day, but we don't have a lot of personal contact with like Mitch Sylvester or Keith Wilson. We've never talked to both of them. Hopefully we can interview them in the future, but I've always kind of taken the stance. I really like what Keith is doing, and I like the idea of Mitch Sylvester trying to take over the UCP in a long-term method. I wasn't so sure he was trying to oust Danielle Smith. I know there had been a lot of talk about that, and I was kind of waiting for a statement to come out from him. And the Western Standard did a fantastic interview with him, and they asked him directly, and he said, no, he's moving towards October 19th and winning that referendum. And he's focusing on next spring, not this spring, to take over the UCP. And that's kind of what I said would be a good strategy as well. If they do want to oust Danielle Smith, it needs to be after October 19th. And it seems like that's what he's saying as well. So I'm glad to hear everybody is kind of on the same page, at least from where I'm standing. I'm seeing Keith Wilson move towards October 19th. I'm seeing Mitch. Both those characters I kind of consider to be the decentralized leadership of Alberta independence.
Yes, and as we've always said, as many strategies as we can think of and as many good suggestions we can take towards October 19th, and letting people use and focus on their strengths to be able to push forward in whatever way or manner they can, even if it's just speaking to your neighbors, speaking to your parents, speaking to your child, and telling them about what this new referendum on October 19 means, that it could just be a vote for, oh yes, we might like to renegotiate. We would like to renegotiate with Ottawa, but to get more people to vote for that second referendum is the number one goal right now, but also looking to the future and next steps after that will be important as well.
Absolutely, because on our timeline, we were looking at 1.5 to 2.5 years for the second referendum. If that's the case, we need to take over the UCP. Mitch Sylvester has had a long-term strategy of buying memberships, which has worked wonders for the Alberta independence movement so far. We should continue on that strategy as well as look at October 19th. We have over 7,000 volunteers. We can have like a little special forces unit trying to identify who are the best candidates for the next time the MLAs are up for election and things like that. I would like to see both strategies kind of implemented here. I will kind of bring up, I guess, Jeff Rath, and I've called Jeff Rath out here or there. He does do a lot of infighting with Corey Morgan, Jason Levine, and others. That being said, I don't like the infighting, but I've never looked at Jeff Rath as the leader like I do Mitch Sylvester or a Keith Wilson, and he's welcome to say what he wants to say, I guess. It is a grassroots decentralized movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I mean, once again, we don't want to be the side of censoring opinions either.
So. No, and I'm very much in support of the Fringe. He's got a little get together tomorrow with all the content creators. I hope that goes really well and everybody kind of gets on the same page with the messaging, because what I'm hearing from Mitch, as well as the Fringe, as well as Keith Wilson, is everybody's focused on October 19th and getting this thing over the line. So.
Yeah. Okay, but before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. After your little statement, please do subscribe. It really does help us out. Again, thanks to all of you. We got to 3,000 subscribers. So once again, thank you so much to everybody. But it is the best way to support us. Also, we try to read all your comments. Yesterday was insane. So thank you so much to everybody that was commenting and engaging. Sorry if I didn't get to some. I will try today. So join the conversation. But if you really, really want to and feel so inclined, you can always super chat. And we pause the whole show for those. Read them, interact with them, and then continue on with the show. Also, I read that one. Also, we have memberships. Yeah. Thank you so much to everybody yesterday that we have so many new members. I was working on making a thing for the end of the show where it shows all the current members. But since we got a bunch yesterday, I'm going to have to redo it. And we probably will start using it either tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah.
So watch out for your names flying up on that one. Now I'll start saying hello, and then we'll go into the rest of the show.
Absolutely. And I've seen some good comments before the show, so there's some stuff I do want to address there.
Yes. Hold on. if I can get to them. There we go. Glenn Gunn says, just watched your podcast with Jason and Paula. Awesome. Such a
thank you.
Such a good, true conversation. Well done. And they're wonderful. And it was great that we were their first interview as a couple, us being married and everything, and a couple too. And there were a lot of, funnily enough, there were quite a bit of similarities between their story and ours, meeting at a bar meeting at a bar, her being an immigrant, et cetera, and then her changing her position as well ideologically a bit, which I did, but in a more radical way. So it was great. And then when we went into the strategy session, that was also very interesting to know what they thought might be the most effective things to go into.
And that was a pre-recorded interview, so it was actually done a couple of weeks ago, but I think a lot of the things were still very applicable.
Yeah. And I'm just now getting done exporting and everything the Kathy Flatt interview, which also was recorded a while ago. Again, we have a backlog of interviews we're still trying to get through. Thank you so much to everybody that has interviewed with us. But that one is also still very prescient and with a lot of very interesting points as well.
Yeah.
So watch out for that one tomorrow. Todd says chicken on the frying pan.
Oh, fantastic.
And Glenn Gunn asks,
hopefully fried chicken on the frying pan.
Glenn Gunn asks, what, no air fryer? We don't have an air. We used to have one. It was disgusting.
But it's hard to clean
It was
sometimes.
dirty, yeah.
But some of the air fryers are really easy to clean. The one
Because we had it secondhand.
Yeah.
So it was already kind of gross. We tried to get it as good as we could, and it never got as good as new. So, but Todd says, yeah, I do an air fryer, but I had bacon fat in the pan. Ooh, nice.
That's
Already
the best.
good to cook chicken in. Yes, it is. And says, just leave the bacon fat pan on the stove with the lid on. And I remember we tried doing keto for a while.
Yeah.
I lost way too much weight on that, but it was kind of good for you. It was to check if it would help with inflammation, but
and I love bacon.
a lot of bacon fat. I remember cooking with a lot of bacon fat back then. Glenn Gunn says, Nat and Guy, not sure I agree with your thumbnail. These two, meaning Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre, are 100% better than any liberal in Canada.
Well, and I'll say, they're definitely the best of the National Conservatives. That being said, they're both going to be coming to Alberta to stump against Alberta independence. They could have just stayed on the outside. I mean, Pierre came running to Alberta when he needed a seat, and then he left, and now what? He's going to come stump against Alberta? His district is one of the biggest supporters of Alberta independence, period. And then Danielle Smith had this press conference today, along with all the other Western leaders. It looks like a bunch of federalist ideas where they're going to help federalize natural resources. At least that's what I'm hearing, in my opinion. And I've been kind of pitching this for a long time, but it really looked like it when you have David Eby, the premier of Manitoba, Danielle Smith. Now, I know there was a little bit of conflict on the stage. I did watch the entire interview because one of our viewers, I think it was Teresa, sent the link. I played it in 2x speed, watched the entire thing. I was not impressed whatsoever. And that's why I kind of put both of them on the cover. So hopefully they come around eventually. They need to realize Alberta independence has the same principles that they've been pitching for the last decade. The difference is they're not able to enact that change. We are. Danielle Smith is signing MOUs that are not good MOUs. Everybody in Alberta independence knows it. National Conservatives, on the other hand, I think get a different impression of a lot of these natural resource deals.
Glenn says Steve Boyd Quinn, Gilboa apparently, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then for some reason, again,
I will say one other thing. After I finished watching that Western Standard press conference with Danielle Smith and the other Western leaders, right away the Mitch Sylvester interview popped up. That was fantastic as well. I've kind of been waiting for a statement from him, from his own words. And man, that was really enlightening. I'm glad he did that interview. And I'm glad the Western Standard asked very, very direct questions.
Mm-hmm. And again, for some reason, my chat reloaded, so I can't bring up these next ones, but I will read them because thank you so much. Glenn Gunn says, tree hugger Steve G. Stevie G, I'll call him. Glenn Gunn says, good evening, Nat and Guy, and the rest of the hoodlums here. I wanted to bring that one up because it was funny, but I couldn't. Lyle Norman says, the Liberals are close to losing their majority, 31 degrees centigrade, just about Mexico weather. Where it's cold here, it's raining, but nice that it's getting up there, over there.
I'm not going to expect him to lose his majority. If he does, I'm expecting him to have more floor crossers waiting in the wings, or at least conservatives to step down from their positions and then have snap elections and things like that. I think he's got it fairly secure right now. And it's a shame because I would rather see any conservative in power other than Mark Carney.
And then Troglodyte says, I'm more of a miscreant than a hoodlum. So that one was for Glenn Gunn. And Glenn Gunn says, nice, you got Kathy. Yes. And also says, wahoo, 3,000. Again, thank you so much for all your support as well. Lyle Norman says Glenn. Oh no, they're
Well, and I will say, Kathy Flitt was able to change my mind on a lot of things. I used to say we need a leader. I kept pitching that for a while. Then we had that interview with Kathy Flitt, and then I never brought it up again because she actually changed my mind. I don't know if it was during the interview or before we went on, but I was kind of talking about that. And she was talking about the history of Alberta independence. And the last couple times it kind of came up, they were able to smash it down by going after the leadership. And she explained exactly what the benefits of decentralized leadership was. And, she was able to convince me. So
yes. And hold on. Todd says, my Ninja is easy to clean. Ours was not that fancy. Again, it was secondhand and pretty gross as it was. And then it got gross.
We had a T-valve one. Yeah.
T-foul, I think.
T-valve.
T-foul.
Okay, let's keep going here.
It's a T-foul. Ghost of a Chance says, near the neutral zone. Oh, about the heat. Charlotte says, yes, that Western Premier's thing was an S show.
I thought so as well, and I'm glad I watched the entire thing. First, I had gathered clips just for the show, and then Teresa sent me the entire, I think it was an hour and a half or something like that, and that was an absolute shit show. It's looking like more and more of a uniparty. It's looking like they want to federalize Western resources, and they're probably going to disguise it in the way of, these provinces are getting sovereignty. They'll give them sovereignty on small issues, but not on the issues that really turn Canada into a globalist hellhole.
Glenn Gunn says, my Ninja is the bomb. Hopefully not literally. Ghost of a Chance says, palm tree weather in the nation of Alberta. Well, that's good. That's great for you. Again, we here near Mexico City, and we're even a bit further up a mountain. It's raining and it's cold. And it's but during the day it's sunny, and then every evening it rains. Todd says, Kathy for Presidente of the New Republic of Alberta. Yes, I concur with that. But again, Kathy Flatt's interview will be coming out tomorrow. Look out for the trailer on our X for that.
Yeah, and I know a little bit about Kathy before we interviewed her, not a lot. She really impressed me in that interview, I must say. Nadine is another person that really impressed me kind of out of nowhere.
Ghost of a Chance says, Kathy is awesome. Yes. Don Nadalek says, good evening, Nat and Guy and everyone else. Canadian Spider-Man says, hey, Nat and Guy, this stream was displayed as YouTube featured in my feed. The gods are on your side. Thank you, YouTube gods, for once. Maybe our government minders thought, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
James Isle says, Alberta versus everyone. Ghost of a Chance says, neutral zone is the neutral hills by consort. Okay, no idea. And Todd says, Saudi Arabia weather, I call it. Well, maybe it's getting closer to that.
Let's go ahead and Alberta Stay Free if we can.
Yes, hold on. Give me 1 second. There. Breaking news or Alberta Stay Free?
Oh, no, Alberta Stay Free. No, oh, wait, did I have breaking news? Oh, yeah, I did have a breaking news section, actually.
Okay, let's go to breaking news then.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And there actually was quite a bit of breaking news. Now it's all coming back to me. I gathered it right before we went on air. There's actually 3 stories in this section.
And it's all coming back to me. Western Standard says, quote, Prime Minister Mark Carney makes it clear a 50+1 result on Premier Smith's independence question is not enough. He just said it was. What do you think that he's done?
The standard for democracies around the world is 50+1. Now, what does he want? A 60% vote? He didn't even get 50%, and he was able to cobble together a majority government through floor crossers. This is absolutely ridiculous. I hope Quebec calls him out, because Quebec has more political power because they have threatened independence in the past, and it worked to their advantage. So now it's kind of up to Quebec to call him out, because it seems like no matter what Western Canada says, Mark Carney doesn't care, and this statement kind of proves that.
Well, and again, Quebec already had stood up in Parliament to say, no. To be able to separate, it's always been 50+1, kind of defending Alberta as well, because these issues that are coming up are very important for them too. So they're really noticing. We played another, I believe it was MLA or a Quebec politician also calling out and saying, we are watching, because Alberta does have the right to have a question made by its own citizens about separation.
Well, and I will say one other thing about this. The one good thing about this, he's playing shady politics here, and he's saying 50+1 isn't acceptable. The fact of the matter is democracies worldwide recognize 50+1 as the majority. The other thing here is going to be the questions changed, and it's non-binding. In a lot of polling, it should be easy to convince about 60%. I kind of am suspecting we're about 60% right now with the new question. If we can properly educate people that this isn't a referendum for independence, this is a referendum for a better deal with Ottawa. And the only way to do that is to click independence on this non-binding referendum.
Is 50 plus 1 enough?
No, it is not. It is not. For under a Clarity Act, it is absolutely not. And I would just recommend that you read the Clarity Act. It's very clear. Not surprisingly, the Clarity Act is very clear. And a determination, and there's a series of conditions, which I responded in the House for the record.
Is 50 plus 1 enough?
Very clear.
Is 50 plus 1?
I gave sorry, just to be clear, because it is a question about a question. I mean, it's explicit in the question that it's not a binding referendum. This is what I expected, but as I said in French, that as Prime Minister on particular issues of a constitutional nature, I like to make sure I have the official advice before us, which is why yesterday I was careful in terms of.
Is 50 plus 1 enough?
No, it is not. It is not. For under a Clarity Act, it is absolutely not. And I would just recommend that you read the Clarity Act. It's very clear. Not surprisingly, the Clarity Act is very clear.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And what if it's not 50 plus 1? Why aren't you clarifying what percentage is actually needed to win a vote? Because as far as I know, every democracy around the world is 50 plus 1. Quebec already clarified that. The Liberals backed down a few weeks ago. They posed the question twice in a row, and both times the Liberals said 50 plus 1. Now Mark Carney wants to say, no, it's not 50 plus 1. And what he's trying to say here is if we don't get his magic number, if it's 70 or 80% or whatever number he wants to make it, I guess, that we're not going to get the second referendum. I think that's what he's trying to imply here.
But also it was interesting that he said, I clarified, or what did he say? He said something with Premier Danielle Smith to make it clear that X, Y, Z, that it has to be, this is not a non-binding question, is what he said, that he ensured that it was known that it would be a non-binding, like he wanted to make sure that that was a non-binding question. So how much of a hand did he have in changing Danielle's mind?
Well, number one, it's not a non-binding question. A lot of people in the independence movement are extremely upset about this. That's number one. But number two, now it's non-binding. Plus, we have to get 60% or whatever magic number it is. This is sounding absolutely ridiculous. They're not going to negotiate in good faith when it comes down to it. And I mean, Canada is collapsing in real time. Do we actually have enough time to get both of these referendums before Canada drives off a cliff? I don't know. But what I am saying is we're headed towards October 19th, and I believe we can get over 60%.
Yes. And also, funnily enough, the Broken Canoe. What can you tell us, Premier Danielle Smith, that the way she is approaching the independence movement is wrong and that she should not focus on holding a referendum later this year? It's funny, coming from the more liberal side, the more progressive side that always wants to defend women, that he's telling a woman how to do her job. I would think that that would be against their principles. It's not against mine, but it is against their principles. So.
Well, and he's saying that the duty to consult is there. Yeah, the duty to consult happens after, not before. This is obvious because it's laid out in legal terms throughout multiple documents in Canadian law.
But we want to make sure that we have a very clear understanding of what the duty to consult really means and what it. And I think at the moment there's a lack of clarity on that. And you've had a lot about.
Sorry, I'd like to respond. So I think we know that is not correct. A lot of what you just said there, Premier Smith, specifically, and we spoke about this, so I don't mind repeating this. It is not up to the petition gatherers to fulfill the duty to consult. It is up to you as the Alberta government to fulfill the duty to consult. And
okay, so what is he saying here? Even if we would have consulted, that wouldn't have been enough. We would have to get Danielle Smith to consult, who's a federalist, who is against independence. Now we have to get her on side as part of the independence movement so they can lambast her as well. This is absolutely ridiculous. Chief Do Nothing here is literally doing nothing, saying nothing. He doesn't know the law.
Well, he's mansplaining, which they're very much against. So this could be considered a hate speech.
And in this case, when there's clearly going to be an impact on well-established existing hunting and fishing rights by putting up an international border, if some would have their way, the judge ruled, and I would agree with the judge's ruling, that is going to infringe on rights. And so there is a duty to consult. Now, to take a step further, for the Albertan who's been frustrated over the lack of progress on pipelines, he's got the Premier of BC announcing LNG. We're working on Churchill. We're working on northern trade corridors. This is a moment to get big things built in Manitoba. And I would say now is the time to work together. Why don't we hold off on this referendum talk for a year or two and see if we get these pipelines under construction.
Pause it.
Because at the
And this is the globalist point of view. This is the federalization of Western Canada. We're seeing it in real time. We have these MOUs. Yeah, these MOUs are putting so many restrictions and carbon taxes on not only new pipelines but existing pipelines. You are seeing natural resources being federalized in real time, and they're pitching it as a good thing for Western Canada. No, it takes money out of the pockets of Western Canada and puts it in the federal government's hands permanently.
At the end of the day, we want Canada to succeed. We're all very proud of this place. I myself am very, very patriotic. And what I think it's important for us to say when we hear this sorts of discussion happening here in Alberta is for us to say, okay, thank you, First Nations in Alberta, for hitting the pause button on this. Now the rest of Canada, let's work together and show Alberta just how appreciated they are in the rest of this country.
And it became very clear, because I watched that whole press conference. It was rather long. That the plan is, because Danielle Smith's response to that, well, we'll have to see what the federal courts say and if they overrule the court decision. I think, and she said the other day, and we had that clip on our X saying this could be a 2.5-year process or longer. She's going to try to draw out, and the federal government's going to try to draw out this process while they federalize Western Canada with their natural resources. And they're going to pitch it as it's a good thing. We're doing good things for Western Canada and Canada as a whole. That's not the case at all.
Exactly. And again, him saying, oh, who doesn't like Canada? Who would be proud of Canada? A lot of people. But interestingly, there's bubblings and conversations continuing to come up elsewhere, not just within Canada or Alberta. And it's almost as if someone's hearing us somewhere calling for an international conversation on independence, because once again, CTV News says, quote, Scottish Parliament backs move for new independence vote.
Yeah.
Scotland.
And anytime, just leave this up here for a second, anytime independence comes up anywhere in the world, whether it's Saskatchewan, Quebec, Scotland, there's a lot of other places around the world where similar independence movements are happening. Now, they're not quite as far along as the ones in Canada. That being said, people are wanting to break free from these globalized governments. You will own nothing and you will be happy. That's not what the Scottish people want, and they're trying to voice their opinion.
They also don't want a king, and also this has been a discussion since Queen Mary, Queen of Scots, but it's interesting that they have continued to further it up to now.
Well,
and it takes a very different context nowadays as well, as you were saying.
That tends to downplay the Scottish independence movement. I talk about it quite a lot, and they got a majority within their parliament that actually support independence. So it's possible it can go forward. The problem is there is still a lot of legal hurdles that they're going to kind of have to resolve. And that's the problem primarily with the Scottish independence movement. There was, I believe, around 2010, they had a vote for independence in Scotland, and now it's kind of coming up again.
Mm-hmm. But again, can we use this to piggyback off each other, international attention, international coverage as well about several different independence movements and their causes and roots behind them as well? Because in a way, there are a lot of, I hate this word, intersections within what Scotland is saying nowadays versus with what's Alberta, with what Saskatchewan, with what Quebec.
Well, yeah, what I was thinking as soon as I seen that, I was like, we need to figure out who are the major figures within Scottish independence and kind of interview them, not only on our station, but other Alberta independence channels, and kind of get an international conversation. This is a perfect opportunity, because I had also identified Quebec's independence movement as a good way to kind of reach out to have East meets West kind of national conversation within Canada.
True. Now we'll go into your comments, and then we'll head over into Alberta Stay Free. Todd says, haha, not agrees. Yes. Not sure what I agree with, but yes. Todd says, get to work, guy.
I'm working. I'm always working. I'm working on independence.
Val Norman says, they said in the House of Commons, 50+1. Exactly.
Yeah, but now Mark Carney is trying to quote the Clarity Act, and he keeps quoting the Clarity Act. I know everybody doesn't watch every episode we do, but every time he speaks about the Clarity Act, I make sure to grab that clip, and that's exactly what he's been bringing up as the mechanism to stop Alberta independence. Even if it's not to stop this first referendum, what he's thinking is he can use it to stop the second referendum, even if we get a 50+1 vote. So we're going to have to get him to clarify, and we're going to really have to go attack this 50+1 idea.
And thank you so much, Teresa Freedom, for the $5 super chat, saying, just as usual, quote, Alberta, Canada is doing things, just shut up and give us your money and wait until we want to talk to you.
Exactly. And I'm really concerned because Teresa was the one that sent that entire press conference. I really recommend going to watch this. Western Canadian leaders, which I think are starting to form this uniparty and federalized natural resources, are going to pitch this as a united Canada is good for all Western provinces. And it's not. It's going to literally take more money and take your sovereignty away over a period of time.
Ghost of a Chance says, "We Sprite curls my toenails," Mark Carney. Todd says, "It's 50 plus 1, Mark." Val Norman says, "Quebec said 50 plus 1. Also, Carney is full of you-know-what. And lots of it." Todd says, "Our beautiful Quebecers said 50 plus 1, Mark."
Well, it was also supposed to be a binding referendum. So we have to realize we're playing in their sandbox. We need to really figure this thing out.
Yeah, and Ghost of a Chance says 50 plus 1 without the immigrant vote. And Ghost of a Chance also says, "Wee Sprite is always flustered. He's in over his head." Also says, "Panic attack in the water is what I see." And Ghost of a Chance also says, "Find me a canoe in a river for Christ's sakes."
I really don't like a canoe.
Send him up it. Todd says, "Way to say it." And also...
and one more thing. All those Western leaders, which really seem like a bunch of freaking globalist and uniparty shills to me, guess who hosted that? Danielle Smith in Alberta.
Ghost of a Chance also says, "MOU just equals members of Uniparty." Basically what it
and
is.
it's becoming very obvious. It's the Federalists and all the politicians lined up on one side against the citizens of Alberta and the citizens of other provinces as well.
Glenn Gunn says, "That guy is a schmuck." 300 MPH Martyr says, "Always go with the math when it comes to numbers." Exactly. Glenn Gunn says, "The law is clear." Yes, it is. Trollodyte says, "The denial of 50 plus 1 will really trigger Les Québécois."
Absolutely.
Once again, because he did it again. Canadian Spider-Man says, "Guy almost said non-binary." Hey. Yeah, that's everywhere now. Not that kind. Glenn Gunn says, "Get him out of here." Canadian Spider-Man says, "We're leaving no matter what he says." And I'm guessing he wouldn't like the other ways we can leave.
Well, I think Mark Carney looks at the Alberta independence movement as non-binary. If you win the referendum, if you don't win the referendum, you're staying in Canada anyway.
You're always Canadian.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Mr. Cheese, I like that username, says he's so flustered. He always does.
Yeah.
I mean, he ums and ahs more than we do.
Well, especially lately, I've been noticing that. I don't know if he's off his medication or what. We played a clip yesterday,
a new one.
and there was more ums and ahs, and I'm fine
usual.
with a few of them. But man, half the little speech he gave was ums and ahs.
Glenn Gunn says, then he gets another 10,000 going to Ottawa.
Well, now that I think about it, he only ums and ahs like that when he's really talking about Alberta independence, I noticed.
Yeah, when he's doing his little speeches in front of the WEF, he's clear as a whistle.
Well, he could be getting triggered because of what happened with Brexit, and he was highly connected to the economy before that Brexit referendum happened.
Maybe we're giving him PTSD. Keep going. Keep doing it. Teresa Freedom, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says, Danielle even bought EB a pair of cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Do they fit him?
God.
That's embarrassing.
Are they going to go on a date next, or what's going on here? I was surprised Pierre Poilievre wasn't out there. Isn't he a leader of Western Canada? He's from Alberta, Battle River Crowfoot, just like Mark. I'm surprised Mark.
But he's not a premier.
I'm surprised Mark Carney wasn't there as well. Isn't he from Alberta? He claims to be an Albertan. He's always wearing his cowboy hat, flipping pancakes.
Carney won't say what the number is, so he can't deny, obviously. Glenn Gunn says, paid off canoe head. Yes. Look at her. Hello says, no consultation is needed to hold a referendum. In any case, Mitch Sylvester had invited all Alberta First Nations chiefs to meet and talk, yet none showed up. Exactly. So what do we have to go chase them down and say, hey, we're consulting you? Is that what they want? Because, I mean, we can do that.
Well, yeah, and none of the leadership showed up. 2 women from one of the tribes ended up showing up. So hats off to those 2. But does that count as a consultation? Because it's not clear what a consultation actually is. According to Mr. Canoe, even if we would have consulted the chiefs, that wouldn't be enough because it was Danielle Smith that had to consult the chiefs. So they get to pick who's consulting, when they're consulting, how many they're consulting.
Exactly. And it's just another mechanism to stop.
Yeah.
Freedom,
obviously.
Couture says the treaties are not affected by a referendum or independence. They know that. Yes, they know that. And of course, again, I think they're in large part being used as a mechanism for the federal government to be able to try to stall or stop this. It's not, I mean, yes, it's them saying it, but is it really them saying it?
Yeah.
Glenn Gunn says, paid off chiefs. Sorry, I know very many First Nations that want to go and know their chiefs are bad. Yeah, they also want independence from their chiefs and from the system itself that is also holding them down in a different way, other than just being within Alberta.
Not necessarily. They don't got over 50+1. They need 60% now. If we don't get 60% from every community, we don't meet the Clarity Act, according to Mark Carney.
Going on says, I know a chief that got voted out because he wanted his reserve to be better.
Yeah.
And
And we have showed one chief on here that made some really great statements. So I'm not saying every chief, but the majority of them are just hand over fist collecting money from the federal Liberal government.
Lucatur says, for the amount of money the bands receive, they should all look like high-end gated communities. Nope, just a few houses within the reserves look like high-end.
Yeah.
And guess why? Where the money is going. Charlotte, I can't read this one, but I'm going to just put it out there. And Charlotte says, yeah, WTF is up with that. And Glengun says the reserves are led by families, and they continue to be and stay within that power vacuum.
Yeah, and it's only a few last names that seem to ever be allowed to run. And if somebody else runs, there's massive fines levied against those individuals. We talked about I'd say a couple of weeks ago about a $450,000 fine levied against an individual because they wanted to run in one of those elections.
Yeah. Okay, now let's go into Alberta Stay Free, and then I'll continue reading all your comments.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And starting with from the National Post saying, quote, Jeff Ross, quote, Quebec and Alberta separatists don't hate Canada.
And you can click into the article again here. And yeah, they're losing their national identity. And Canada has eroded its own identity over the last couple of decades. So Quebec and Alberta already weakened their identities because they were part of Canada. We want to separate from Canada so we can save those identities, as well as economic reasons and a lot of other things.
Sorry, it did a weird thing on me. It says they are disenfranchised by a country that looks down on them, their economies, and their culture. No, go away.
And that's the point right there. And that's the headline I wanted to get, was the headline under the headline. They're disenfranchised by a country that looks down on them. And we see Mark Carney looking down on them. Even more so with Alberta than Quebec, because with Quebec, apparently it's 50+1. But with Alberta, no, you can't have a binding referendum and you're going to need to get 60%.
Mm-hmm. But also from the Globe and Mail says, quote, an independent Alberta would be a way station on the path to 51st statehood.
And again, this is the
Still going at it.
This is the third time this has come up in mainstream media again in the last few days. They're really going to start leaning on this, especially after the Jason Kenney debate. They're not having any good talking points, and the talking points they're saying aren't sticking, including the MOU talking point coming from Danielle Smith. Everybody can see right through that. The independent side is not buying into it. People in other provinces may well be, but not in Alberta. They're too smart for it. We need to squash this 51st state nonsense as well. I truly believe the federal government is going to implant figures or organizations that are going to try to pitch 51st state. We have to make sure the people know we want to be an independent nation.
Because both that, but I've also started seeing that, yes, that conversation around the 51st state and the fear-mongering is coming up in mainstream news, but also in comments, not just ours, but other people's as well. Other people as well that talk about Alberta independence are starting to get the whole, oh, you just want to be part of the U.S., you're a traitor, all you can be is a 51st state, et cetera, which I hadn't seen in a while. So it looks like they're shifting, again, their tactic towards that talking point because they're seeing that the whole history and guilt-shaming doesn't work.
Well, it works so well for them with their elbows up campaign to win Carney's election, and with nothing kind of coming to the surface as far as strategies that are working. They're like, let's just go back to the elbows up campaign. It's a lot less likely to work in Alberta than it would do in Quebec, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Fergus Hodgson says, quote, the diversity of opinion available on social media is a threat to prevailing myths and power structures. Security is the guise used to stifle this rising awareness, and we can see the screws tightening on many fronts. Digital charter is Trojan horse for censorship. Social media platforms, users must resist out-of-touch bureaucrats. It's a video. Hold on. There we go.
There is no dispute that terrorists weaponize social media to increase their impact, and social media firms have a role to play in stopping such abuse. However, politicians and tech firms can also co-opt legitimate concerns to restrict speech, stifle criticism, and tilt public debates. The application of safety protections is already limiting legitimate discussions deemed too extreme by censors. The debate over gender pronouns, for example, has led to a fine against a peaceful, law-abiding man in British Columbia. Further, subsidies for approved media outlets, not to mention CBC's taxpayer funding, demonstrate how Canadian officials can easily incentivize submissive, regime-oriented journalism. Proponents of the complicated digital charter explicitly identify fake news as one of their chief targets. There is no dispute
Yeah,
that
and we've seen massive amounts of censorship bills coming down, and a lot of them are very obvious and they're in the mainstream media, but there's a lot of sub bills and things coming in that will work to restrict speech, not just on YouTube, but all over Canada in every way that they can, including comments in comment sections.
And again, we've also been talking about what they want to do to even big actual streaming corporations to force Canadian content down everybody's throats that nobody wants because it's just pure propaganda. So there's many mechanisms, many different ways, from Bill C-22, where they want to literally spy on you through your phone, within your phone, to Bill C-9, where they want to censor your speech, to other bills that were already passed, like the news bill, the online digital news bill that passed a few years ago, where now you can't watch news on Facebook because Facebook doesn't want to have to pay to be able to have a link within their site.
Well, and this is part of the issue with a much extended timeline, because we have to win 2 referendums now. They're going to have time to get these bills in places. So the grassroots campaign of having in-person conversations is going to be crucially important. It's much harder to censor in-person conversations.
And Todd says, see, of course, for a consult. Teresa Freedom says the Chiefs do not even live on their own reserves.
Well, and a lot of the members don't either. They end up leaving the reserves looking for a better future for themselves because the reserves offer them absolutely nothing. But billions are being funneled into these reserves. Where's the money going? Obviously, it's not going to the right places because the members are voting for independence.
Todd says Albertans love Quebecers, and again, continuing to have that national conversation, again, so unsiloing the conversations in both Quebec and Alberta and say, hey, we actually agree on quite a few things, not to get together and join the movements, but to push forward for independence and help each other gain independence.
What we need to realize after today is there's 2 sides lining up. Yeah, all from British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, you're seeing all these Western leaders and Western elites, this uniparty line up, but you're also seeing the citizens on social media kind of coming together. You're seeing the content creators and people from BC, from Saskatchewan, from Alberta, all supporting independence. It's very interesting. The Western Canada politicians have one vision of the future, and it seems to be a globalist vision of the future, and they seem like they're coming closer and closer and closer to Mark Carney, even when they're labeled as a conservative with these MOUs that they're signing and everything else. The citizens are starting to wake up to this, and they're realizing we can't put our future in the hands of politicians. We need to do it ourselves, like Alberta Independence is doing.
And even over the weekend, it was great to see that Max from Freedom Calendar, Kathy Flett, and a bunch of other people went to Saskatchewan to be able to talk there with the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project. So it's already starting. It might be in the background and maybe a little bit slower, but start having these conversations face to face too. It's important.
Well, absolutely. And we're on a much longer timeline now. So it's going to be easier to make a national conversation come to fruition.
International also. I will include Scotland and others in there as well. Chan says Canada has lost itself. Alberta is the last bastion. And people within other provinces, I would also say, are those last bastions because they just do still understand what it used to be like and what it's not like now.
Well, and that's not to give Alberta too much credit. It's starting to get stripped of its identity through politicians, through federalization, taking sovereignty away, putting massive amounts of immigrants in there, getting into the schools. I know Danielle Smith is claiming woke is dead in Alberta schools, but we're constantly showing examples where it's still in there. Land acknowledgements are happening all over the place, even in Alberta. That's why we need to get out now. Well, it's not entrenched. Well, we can still save Alberta. Now's the time for independence, not later.
Todd says it's very easy to convert a Quebecer into an Albertan. Lol, I know many. Max from Freedom Calendar would be one of them.
Yeah, we interview Max.
Chile via Quebec to Alberta, essentially. Teresa Freedom says, do you live in Alberta? Just asking because I value your knowledge. To Glenn Gunn. So Glenn Gunn, do you live in Alberta? I believe he does, if I don't remember correctly, Edmonton or Calgary. Todd says they just have to come and live here for a bit and Waymo hybrid. A Whammo hybrid.
Well, and that seems to be the case, especially when we're talking to everybody. They're like, well, yeah, I was all for a united Canada until I came to Alberta. And these on-the-ground conversations have been happening way before Alberta independence came this huge wave recently. The conversations have been going on for a long time now.
Again, Jason Levine, during the interview that we released yesterday, said exactly that.
Yeah.
And Todd says, love me some Quebecers, more Montreal, not so much, but outside of that, yes.
Yeah. And that's what we talked to Nico with as well, that Montreal is a different beast.
Langon says, very true, guy. Quebec loves Alberta. And says, for some, that is true. Luke Couture says, Carnage Carney can't move the goalpost. The law is clear, 50+1. Not what he wants to sabotage democracy.
Well, apparently he has some kind of legal definition because he's quoting the Clarity Act. I'm going to take another look at the Clarity Act probably tonight or tomorrow so I can see what's he going to try to finagle here to claim we need 60% or whatever percent he's trying to make up. What's the exact wording that his lawyers are seeing there? Because they must be seeing something.
Tralodite says, the 51st PSYOP fear campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being able to counteract that and shut it down quickly as well. Because I do agree that we might start seeing some unconventional infiltrates within the Alberta independence movement that will start to bring that up more and more and more.
Absolutely.
To sabotage. That was the word I was looking for. Rocking Around says the government will enact lawfare on Albertans. 60% is arbitrary when the definition of majority is 50+1.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, it is 50+1. I know it's 50+1, but Mark Carney isn't even going to give a threshold of what it is. If we reach 60, it's going to be 65. If we reach 65, it's going to be 70. And that's what they're going to go through. And they're going to try to really challenge it in court and just draw it out and draw it out and draw it out until Canada collapses and we unite with the EU in his wet dream, I guess.
Glengon says Calgary, so in Calgary. Glengon also says hard workers from Quebec. I worked with them for months, and he says I meant Quebec City area.
Yeah, there's a lot of people when I used to work on pipelines as well as mining that were from Quebec.
And AB 151 says, I'm not a fan of China, even from a very young age. I have seen the fundamental problems that it has. COVID actually just shows exactly how it was designed to work.
Yeah, and it's very concerning what's happening. Carney's moving away towards Western values, and he's starting to make this communist state. Taking away private property rights, putting it in the hands of First Nations. I don't think this is an accident, and they're creating the model that China already has of a 99-year lease if you own property on tribal land. That's the exact same. That's the exact same game that they play in China. You can't buy a property. If you buy a property, you're actually leasing it for 99 years, and they call it ownership.
Luke Couture says Alberta cannot become the 51st state. Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. wouldn't accept Alberta. Nor would Democratic states vote in favor of Alberta as a 51st state. Independent Alberta first.
Yeah, I mean, everybody within Alberta independence knows this, but we just have to realize it's going to be a mechanism that's weaponized against Alberta independence. Now, if we don't let them get a foothold with that, it shouldn't be a concern.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Luke Couture says Calgary, Alberta, and Quebec City are sister cities. Like literally or just in people's minds? Glengun says great people there. Todd says can't believe Glengun didn't get one of the memberships flying around yesterday. I know.
Yeah, thank you for everybody that did buy memberships yesterday. A lot of people got them. Let's go into Alberta politics if we can.
Okay.
And then we'll get back to comments.
Sure. Let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And starting with from Melissa Rogers saying, quote, Tim Hortons getting big time scared of the upcoming Dunkin' takeover in Canada. They said they would refocus their hiring away from temporary foreign workers. Well, quick search shows they still have many temporary foreign worker roles open. Sorry, Tim's too late. I'm going with Dunkin'.
Absolutely. And we talked about this on the morning show, but I said I was going to bring this up, showing they still have the temporary foreign workers program. Just because you're not lobbying the government anymore because you were already successful at that, Tim Hortons created a real problem for a lot of Canadians, especially younger people and retirees that want part-time jobs. These are the exact kind of jobs that should be going to them, not importing foreigners to take Canadians' jobs. And if you're thinking about between Tim Hortons and Dunkin' Donuts, hopefully Dunkin' doesn't do the same thing and hire temporary foreign workers. It would be a good marketing campaign on them saying, we hire Canadian.
Yeah, they could even say, oh, we're coming from the U.S., but we want to hire Canadian because we value blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and then show students and retirees on their on their marketing campaigns.
Yeah, people that have been saying, hey, it's not fair that we're not being able to get jobs because it's cheaper for a company to hire a temporary foreign worker because they're being subsidized by 30% via the government is paying them to hire temporary foreign workers than to hire us, which is why we're out of jobs.
Well, it would be very hard for Tim's to counter message that, because if they brought it up, it's just going to bring back the memory of what Tim's did to lobby the governments to make that program expand in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And also from Canada, sorry, my mouse I couldn't find it. From Canada, I'm old. From Canada Proud, quote, it's utter insanity. Foreigners have more rights than Canadians in the eyes of our liberal injustice system. Okay. Saying judges are giving lighter sentences to foreigners to spare them from deportation. And we've been highlighting stories like this for a while now, too.
So you mentioned that they should also accept the consequences of the illegal action. So what do you believe the consequences of their illegal action should be?
Well, I just said about control. So if someone is not respecting immigration laws, there should be consequences. And we do have procedures, so they have to be enforced.
We've recently seen judges give preferential treatment to folks to take into consideration to protect their immigration status. Let's put it that way. Do you agree that non-citizen immigrants should be treated differently than a Canadian citizen for committing the same crime?
I understand the good intentions behind that, but I think part of the leitmotif behind what I'm saying is that we have to be careful not to overcompensate and to be overly generous in how we interpret the rights. That was one of the points I was making in my initial statements. I think we do that a lot, and that is actually, in my view, one of the reasons we found ourselves in the current predicament. A surge happened around the Toronto International Airport a couple years ago, not by chance. There was policies that led to a lot of claims at the airport.
Yeah. So most Canadians believe that if you commit a crime, you should get the same sentence no matter who commits it. Doesn't matter what your status is or not.
Exactly. And he said it well there. And I will say these policies are entrenched in Canada now. That's why the reset button needs to be hit in Alberta.
But also, let me use this card. I hate saying it like this, but as a Mexican immigrant, even I think that if you're being invited into a country, you should be on your very best behavior. You don't go into someone's house and start wreaking havoc unless you're insane. I would even say have harsher sentences for people that have come in, have been granted either citizenship or temporary whatever or permanent residence. And because they disrespected the laws of the country that welcomed them in, then maybe I would say even harsher sentences.
Absolutely.
But again, we want equality in the eye of the law. But
this is common sense. How this policy even came to be, they thought they were going to slip this under the rug and nobody was going to notice, much like private property rights, but it's bubbled up to the surface now, and it's causing havoc within Canada.
Mm-hmm. And again, let's not forget the bus incident. Well, and everything that continues to go around that.
Well, and there's a two-tier justice system on top of that right now. We see happening in the UK as well as Canada.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had a hair in my eye. Yes, I said it the right way. I thought I said I had an eye in my hair. Bernie says, quote, Australia lets the cat out of the bag. In order to ban under 16s from social media, everyone will have to have digital IDs or they won't be able to use the internet. Starmer says digital ID won't be mandatory unless you have never used the internet.
And this is what I've been saying for a long time. As soon as this policy came in, I said it's going to be expanded. It's the only way to make the program work. I had read a lot of documents. I had watched a lot of interviews with people. It's obvious the only way to make a digital ID work on under 16s is for everybody. And this is the soft approach they want to bring in to force everybody to have a digital ID without them even knowing there's a law.
Mm-hmm. And again, we saw the same mechanism being applied in other countries, particularly the UK, where kids were able to circumventing by painting mustaches on themselves and saying like, oh, I'm over 16. But this mechanism is where it leads to. It leads to everybody having to prove their age to be able to access the internet. And Canada, again, is starting to bring in policies that are very similar.
And let's make this clear. It's not the digital ID is the foundation layer they need to stack digital currency and everything else on, whether it's social credit scores or anything else. So we need to stop digital ID at its base, because then we stop everything else.
Mm-hmm. Of course, if you're testing to see if someone's 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, you're also testing to see by definition, if they're 16 plus. So if there's going to be age verification, everybody is going to have to go through an age verification process, won't they? Yes. Yes. So this isn't just about the privacy or collecting data about kids.
And I don't know if you heard it, but they mumbled, yes, yes, two of them. It's like, come on, answer the freaking question.
This is literally everybody accessing social media. That's how it has to work, isn't it?
Yes.
Senator Shoebridge, you just used the term age verification. You may not have been in the room when we had a discussion about the distinction between age verification and age assurance. This is an age assurance trial.
This is, if you're going to have age assurance for kids 13, 14, 15 or 16, testing, if they're that age, you're testing everyone's age and you're doing it at that level of age assurance. And that has privacy and data protection implications for literally everybody accessing social media, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why we've commissioned consumer research to look at consumer willingness and particular aspects that are important to them.
It's not about willingness. It's about privacy and not wanting the government to know every single thing about you.
Well, and it's not about consumers. It's about they want to track citizens in every move they make. And this has a lot to do with politics. We already seen them ban certain subjects being even talked about within the EU, like mass migration. It's considered hate speech and people are being arrested for it in the UK right now.
Yeah, let's remember how many arrests they do. They've done
12,000 a year.
Exactly. That's the number I was trying to get to. But now let's go into your comments and then we'll head into Alberta Personalities. Ghost of a Chance says, never forget the Liberals own the Supreme Court, which leaves very few options. Belize, here I come. Don't know much about Belize, but it doesn't sound that bad. Security-wise, maybe. But exactly. And that's the thing. They've given themselves mechanisms of power that go even beyond what most regular people even think about when they think about the government and the powers that they have, which is why also Nayib Bukele from El Salvador always says, if you want to be able to make a change and make a real change, the first thing you have to get rid of is the corrupt courts. Because that's one of the mechanisms, if not the most important one, used to continue to dominate and enforce power against the citizens. Teresa Freedom says the Clarity Act does not state a percentage. It says a clear question and a clear majority. So it is unclear, and Carney might just pick his own percentage, 95%. Exactly. Like he could say it's not a clear majority until it's 90%. Because that's what the Clarity Act says.
Yeah, and the standard and the precedent that has been set worldwide is 50+1. This would be a whole new precedent set by the Canadian government.
Wouldn't be the first time they do that.
Yeah.
Ghost of a Chance says District of Columbia.
Well, and I heard somebody talking about Belize. I would say the security is not the best in Belize. El Salvador is really safe right now, though.
No, yeah. Child says, oh yeah, the membership scramble last night. Thank you to everybody that either got a membership or gifted it, especially gifted a membership. Ghost of a Chance says, if you want to know what the UN thinks, ask Ottawa. Basically the same place. Ghost of a Chance also says, Kansas's Dust in the Wind should be the Liberals' theme song. And Todd says, my old man loved Kansas when he was a teenager.
Yeah, and I would much rather have a conservative in there, but what I'm seeing right now is this uniparty starting to emerge with this federalization of natural resources. And the conservatives are still doing land acknowledgements, claiming they want to protect private property. I hope they do want to protect private property, but we got to be very concerned about this idea of federalization right now. We want provinces to maintain their sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I have the dog here. Walking around says, you guys rock. Go down. Walking around says, you guys rock. Keeping up the show every day of the week is really true dedication. Thank you for keeping the conversation going. And thank you for being here and for commenting and for engaging as well in the conversation too.
Yeah, we go on twice a day at 12 noon and 5 p.m. We're going to change the schedule eventually where we're going to go on 6 days a week for the one show and then 3 days for the other, because we're going to start making edited videos and things like that. Mm-hmm. We recently ordered some equipment. It's going to take a few weeks to get here. Once it gets here, you're going to see us testing out our other sets. It's going to be a lot of trial and error to get the lighting right and everything else. It takes a while because I've built quite a few sets now. Yeah. If you look at our past videos, you'll see dramatic differences. We went from absolute crap to slowly getting better.
And again, if you've ever thought about starting a YouTube channel or doing social media or just want to have a laugh, we always have all our old videos and all our old live shows in playlists on this channel called All Our Old Videos, All Our Old Live Shows. So if you want to go laugh at us, you can go there. DePilver says, good evening, Nat and Guy and everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here. And again, if you want to see that, nobody starts perfect, and you have to keep going as you mess up.
Yeah, a lot of failure to get where we're at, and we're still failing every day.
Yes, yesterday.
Yeah.
We had no power. Glenn Gunn says, that dumb bum Carney can kiss my grits. He wants a China and EU deal. Throw it up in the air. Scramble.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a article later about the EU again. I don't know if Carney's gonna try to bring this Canada closer to the EU digital currency. I was looking at the framework a couple of years ago when they originally brought the legislation in for a lot of the digital currency in Canada and the EU. The EU was supposed to be the center of the financial world. All the other digital currencies were supposed to flow through theirs, and that was supposed to be the second coming of the EU. Donald Trump has thrown a monkey wrench in that because he's gone away from CBDCs, gone more towards stablecoin, which actually undermines the EU dollar. So I'm wondering if Carney wants to kind of run the Canadian digital currency, which they already have legislation passed for, and it's just a matter of time before he brings it in, and he wants to run it in with the EU digital currency.
Luke Couture says, I wonder if the United Nations would have something to say about the 50+1. And who was it? Was Kenny the one complaining about somebody bringing up the UN and the UNCLOS thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Todd says, way to say it to Glenn Gunn. Glenn Gunn says, that's what that meant, Todd. Didn't get it, lol. I have more coming. July 1st, I will become a member. Don't worry about it. Glenn asks, Nat, if you're old, I'm a dust in the wind, lol.
Well, and
I'm older than I look.
One of the things Kenny was saying last night on the debate, well, if Alberta separates, Edmonton and Calgary are going to separate too. Absolutely ridiculous. Where are all the natural resources at? They're not in Calgary and Edmonton.
Luke Couture says, commit a crime, deport. Or that, exactly. But if you're going to keep them within the country, then harsher sentencing.
Yeah.
Because they're there as a guest. Glenn Gunn says, the only thing Aussies bring is a great accent.
Yeah, it's a shame how these Western countries, one by one, have just gotten in line with these globalists and these globalist policies. And Canada seems to be at the head of this right now because Donald Trump went so hard at the EU and the UK. It allowed a chance for Mark Carney to kind of really plant his feet. I think Trump's going to really be going after Canada now with the USMCA and then strategically placing tariffs on certain goods to break Carney.
DeBilver says criminals should have law the same across Canada.
Yeah.
Or deported.
We need no specialty groups or classes. It needs to be everybody's the same in the eyes of the law. And people seem to have forgotten that. That was a traditional Western value and what the West was based upon at one point.
Glenn Gunn says, no real in Canada right now. And Glenn Gunn says, wait, if I get a membership, will my name be green? Can I bet black with racing stripes? Yes, your name would be green and if you get a membership, Canadian, but don't worry about it if right now you can't.
Yeah, everybody looks like they're from Saskatchewan that has a membership because it's green.
Canadian Spider-Man says, Belize is beautiful and tropical. There are many expats living in Cape Cocker, just off the coast of in the Caribbean. I spent Christmas there, lobster barbecue for Christmas dinner. I know a lot of people might bemoan that, but that's sounds great.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe we should go to Belize.
Well, and yeah, a lot of countries that aren't safe will have expat locations that around there are fairly safe, but they typically cost a little bit more. I really like El Salvador right now because he's cleaned up the country so much.
Glenn Gunn says, PP hasn't changed nothing. Same old, same old.
Yeah. And that's why I put him on the cover with Danielle Smith. It's like, we need to wake up that there's a uniparty forming here. And even if the Conservatives get into power, I suspect they want to federalize natural resources as well. And that means taking sovereignty away from provinces. I know they give lip service to, we want sovereignty, because they're going to make a big show of Carney's going to give some kind of cultural issue that doesn't really mean anything. And he's going to give it to the province while he takes an economic issue and puts that money in federalist hands.
Glenn Gunn says, Nat used to be taller. No, literally never. Well, when I was growing up, I was one of the tallest girls in my class, but then I just kind of stayed at that height. I did used to be taller when I used to wear heels to work every day. Not doing that again. Now I'm a dirty hippie that wears sandals every day, no matter what the weather is. Ghost of a Chance says, what do you get when you add grit and a Tory?
I don't know. What's the answer to that one?
Not sure. Lukajer says, does Carney want to put Canada under the euro? That will be one of the worst ideas, but maybe.
Worse than that, the digital euro. And I think they're going to have a Canadian digital currency as well, but it's going to all flow into the digital euro from what I could understand of how the framework was supposed to work. A lot of countries pulled out of that, like the US, and they're really undermining that system. But it looks like Canada wants to go down with what's called the EU ship there, possibly even try to re-emerge it through Canadian Canadian national resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
By federalizing its natural resources. Yes. Hold on. Where are we? Ghost of a Chance says you get Danielle Kenny, also phrased as chameleon. Oh, that's funny. And thank you so much to Teresa Freedom for gifting 5 memberships.
Thank you.
Very generous. Glenn Gunn finally got one. Glenn Gunn got a
look at that.
membership. Thank you so much. Canadian Spider-Man as well. Metal Mugen also, Book PM, and Kiana Angel.
Oh,
so
that's great.
everybody thank Teresa, and thank you so much, Teresa, for gifting 5 memberships.
A couple of the longtime followers got one.
Glenn
That's
Gunn,
great.
Canadian Spider-Man, and everybody else that has been maybe passively watches. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Holden Mantis also says Albertans are in for a huge battle. The entire machine is against them, but we already know that. So, I mean, we can strategize forward too.
Yeah, I mean, man, that Carney statement of 50 plus 1 is not enough is absolutely crazy after we've already been bent over the barrel about a non-binding referendum, and then what, a year and a half to 2 years to the second referendum, and then he's trying to stop that referendum. Like, my God,
That's how scared they are.
they're going to try everything in their absolute book to do this. They will, yeah.
Glenn Gunn, they're still talking about Kansas. Says the hate on Kansas was a great group. Luke Couture says €1 equals 161 Canadian. The Canadian dollar is bad right now.
Yeah, it's going to only get worse as well. Let's go into Alberta's Canada if we can, and then we'll go back to comments in just a little bit.
Yes. Oh, let me just say, Canadian Spider-Man says, thank you so much to Teresa. Glenn Gunn says, Teresa, you absolute doll. Love you. Marry me. I don't think it was a marriage proposal. Todd says, yay, another membership frenzy. And Canadian Spider-Man says, yay, thank you so much, Teresa. Yes. So thank you so much. And let's go into Alberta
Alberta Personalities.
Yes,
Almost
right. Yes,
forgot.
Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And starting with from Politics is Broken saying, quote, Alberta's secession, its path paved with immense financial, legal, and global hurdles. The reality is far more complex than the dream.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about here because they name all the hurdles. They seem fairly easy hurdles to me, and they said that will never happen. Like them saying it will never happen means it will never happen. The Liberals in Canada think they're Jedis. You'll never get independence, and we're just going to go along with it.
Massive startup costs. Setting up a new country is incredibly expensive. Alberta would have to duplicate and fund its own military, border security, central bank, currency, tax collection agency, and international embassies. That's not happening. Constitutional and treaty chaos. Indigenous nations hold the actual treaty rights to the land. Secession would trigger immediate massive legal battles and blockades, as First Nations have made it clear they intend to remain part of Canada.
I think what we fail to understand, too, is that if
none of that seemed like a major hurdle to me. That seems like stuff we can work out in about 6 months. The currency issue, we just go into the US dollar because it's the world currency until we work out our own financial system, whether it's a gold-backed currency or anything else. It does not seem like a lot of hurdles. I mean, maybe to a Liberal that has a I can't do attitude rather than the I can do attitude we have in Alberta.
Because they're not freedom-minded. So to them, anything that isn't managed by the government seems like very difficult because they can't envision themselves having that amount of freedom and being able to decide for themselves. They want daddy government on top of them.
If Alberta secedes, it's not just that we get to decide whatever we want whenever we want, because then the consequences are just like Canada faces. On the world stage, there becomes expectations of things, right?
And this is the great thing. Trump has shown the world you don't have to meet these globalist expectations. They want you to sign a Paris climate accord. You just tell them F off and you do your own thing. Yes, within Alberta, you can be respectful to the environment in the ways that you decide, but you don't have to sign on to these global elite treaties.
When we're looking at, the environment and reduction of this and trying to increase that, a lot of times that is part of understandings, right?
Massive startup costs. Setting up
And also, they're not saying that those climate treaties or accords or etc. Essentially, what they do in the mechanism and the ones pushing behind it, which are usually countries that want to rise up like China, India, Russia, they're the ones pushing forward because it stalls and halts development within the countries that are already working towards and very productive already. So they want to halt that development by saying, oh, you're polluting. Well, we can continue to pollute and get our production and all our resources ready and going while you have to stop because we save the climate.
Well, and these three-letter agencies will offer you money, you sign treaties, and now you're locked into depressing your economy. And that's not what Alberta wants. Alberta wants freedom. If we press the reset button, we don't have to uphold to any of these treaties that Canada is signing up to their globalist masters.
And again, it's because they've they don't want to even envision that level of freedom or that level of being able to decide because they've become so accustomed to living under government's thumb.
Okay, let's go
Daddy's
into the next one. And the next one was interesting.
Yeah, because actually he might have Brexit PTSD. BBC News World says, quote, Carney says Alberta referendum, dangerous bluff, similar to Brexit, which might be why he continues to stammer.
Brexit wasn't a bluff. We've seen what happened to Brexit. Now, the problem with Brexit, you went from globalist master in the EU to globalist master within the UK. Alberta is completely different. It's voted conservative for the last 93 years. We have a good, strong foundation. We have an economy that is booming. There is investment dollars rallying up outside the country for the moment Alberta gets its independence. Mark Carney was one of the major players for the downfall of the economy, which led to the vote in Brexit. So hopefully the same thing happens here. And Donald Trump knows that. And Donald Trump is not going to renegotiate this USMCA.
And again, hopefully the parallels, again, maybe don't stop there and Alberta will become independent. But I will also say with this PTSD that he has, oh, I forgot my point. Ow, and now I have the microphone. I forgot my point and I hit the microphone.
That's okay. Let's go into some comments since you forgot your point.
I had a good point. Sorry. Oh, now it's just me as well. Canadian Spider-Man says, I'd have a membership if the government didn't take all my money. Glenn Gunn asks, are you sure, Nat? Sure about what? Me being short? Yes, I'm very sure. Teresa Freedom says, I did that once. I like being on my own, but we can be friends. About marriage, the marriage proposal.
Yeah.
That was a response. Very, very diplomatic. Yes. Goes to Chan says, the wrath of Jeff. Glenn Gunn says, I was there once too, didn't get the t-shirt. Marriage.
Well, it was crazy how lovey-dovey David Eby and Danielle Smith were at this press conference today. Oh, thank you for the boots. Thank you for this. Let's all hold globalist hands and sell out Western Canada together.
Goes to Chan says, dude has a high forehead, beware. The one from the first clip.
Yeah.
The lady too. Glenn Gunn says, Bigfoot? Ask Guy. Oh crap, but you're right. What about Bigfoot though? It might be someone else that commented that I didn't see. Dollar Robinson, hello, says, hi, Nat and Guy, central bank digital currencies. Yes, CBDCs.
Yeah, and they're coming.
We used to talk a lot about this.
They need the digital ID for all of this to work. And they're going to be, Mark Carney's, like, he has a timeline he has to stick on because Canada's at the head of the parade right now. So he has to demonstrate to the rest of the world that he has control. But every time he tries to stick to that timeline, it's just one step closer for Alberta independence. It really pushes Alberta away, especially the citizens, because it's a citizen-led movement. He doesn't have control. He may have control over Danielle Smith, but he doesn't have control over the citizens.
Luke Couture says First Nations could remain under Canada and the Indian Act if that's what they want. Exactly. And that's also an option that has been spoken about too.
This is an excuse for the courts to delay until Canada collapses. Come on, Nat. What are you doing?
I was trying to drink water. Luke Couture says consultations with First Nations will absolutely happen after a successful independence yes vote.
Yeah. And that is what has been laid out in legislation. So why is this confusing? It's not confusing. It's ideological judges. The problem is it's like we're playing a video game of multiple ideological judges. We have to get past one at a time.
Let's go into some RUMBLE comments.
Okay.
There's a lot. Thank you so much. KPRU says, I thought in the House, Quebec already asked the 50+1 ruling, and twice it was acknowledged. Exactly.
Twice it was acknowledged. Exactly.
And they said.
They're obviously going to have to bring it back up.
KPRU says, that's a great idea. Get together with other countries that are doing the same thing. And get the noise started as well.
Well, and the support behind Quebec independence isn't quite as high. They're actually happy because they've made all of these deals. The issue is it could really reignite right now because they see the way they're treating Alberta. And they're like, oh, if these precedents are set, we're not going to have that secondary option later in the future.
Tal Talk says, thanks for the stream, Nat and Guy. Thank you for being here, Tal. And says, Alberta will be free. Yes, it will. Christu, hello. Christu says, hello, dears. Alberta independence, LFG. Yes. And also says, Ukrainian runaway refugee asked me today to sign his list petitioning the government to grant them permanent residency. Bet they'll get it with 100 signatures. And not having to make that much effort.
I'm surprised they even need a petition.
True. KP for you says no.
I thought Mark Carney was paying billions of dollars to get Ukrainian refugees over here. I don't know. It's that Canada is the #1 country per capita to donate the most money to Ukraine. It's a money laundering scheme at this point. The world can see it. They're also trying to wait Donald Trump out. Hopefully, they're hoping to get Gavin Newsom in there and re-engage this to World War III.
Dollar Robinson says Treaty 678 were not about land ownership, but their right to hunt, fish, trapping, and their traditional ways. The propaganda machine is ramping up.
Okay, let's go into Alberta's Canada if we can.
Alberta's Canada. And we call it Alberta's Canada because Alberta's the only thing still holding Canada up.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And starting with from Juno News saying, quote, Liberals defeat Conservative motion defending private property rights. Of course, we've had cases in Richmond, BC, where the province had to backstop individuals to obtain a loan and a mortgage. That was an opportunity to set things right. And yet.
This is the plan, and this has been the plan since Mark Carney has gotten in. You own nothing and you will be happy. It was the slogan for years, and now it's actually happening.
We just came out of a vote in the House of Commons with the Liberals had a chance to stand up for private property owners, not just in the city of Richmond, but across Canada as well. And they failed to do so yet again. In the Cowichan decision, the government failed in 2018 to stand up for private property rights. Directive 14 still exists on the government mandate, directing their lawyers on how to argue the case, which unfortunately, under this mandate, includes not arguing for private property rights. We've had cases in the city of Richmond where there's uncertainty within business owners, property owners, where the province had to come in to backstop those individuals to allow them to obtain a loan and a mortgage. This was an opportunity for the Liberals to set things right. We had a number of objectives outlined in our motion here today, and they voted against it. We just came out of a vote.
And Mark Carney himself voting against it too, so making it more than obvious.
Well, no, Mark Carney didn't. What he did was advise his lawyers. So it's very interesting what's going on here. They're claiming one thing, but obviously this has been a long-term game plan for the globalists.
Mm-hmm. Then we have this from Marzalaya, which is
Mario usually explains it fairly well. We can just go down to the video, and I'm sure he's going to do a good job of it.
But it says, quote, doctor assessed demand for maid outside of Tim Hortons, and then who knows what happened. Hold on.
Oh, we're going to find out.
I know.
This is absolutely nuts. Have you ever heard of a doctor giving medical treatment outside of a Tim Hortons? Well, there's a doctor who gave an assessment outside of a Tim Hortons. And after the doctor did that, he drove him to get made. The patient had inflammatory bowel disease, and he had a history of mental health issues. Then that same doctor personally drove him to go get made. In the location that the doctor drove him to, the Globe and Mail described this place as an industrial-like facility where bodies are prepared for funerals. And listen to this, the same doctor, Dr. James McLean, in a different case, he failed to administer one of 3 drugs that are required for MAID. One that paralyzes the muscles, including the muscles involved in breathing. So the patient resumed spontaneously breathing again after initially being pronounced dead, and after the doctor had already left the home. For those who don't know, there's currently an exclusion for MAID and mental health, meaning you can't get MAID if you do have mental health. The Liberals have actually postponed that until 2027. So this exemption expires then. They wanted to do it a few years ago. There was so much backlash against this, and people were so disgusted by the thought that their 18 and 19-year-old kids who have mental health issues can immediately receive MAID without parental consent. It's a scary thought, but a possible one under the Liberal government. So what they did is, instead of repealing it, they kicked the can down the road, thinking that, you know what, maybe later on in time, things will be okay. Well, that expiration date is going to come due soon, and we can never.
And let's remember, why did they kick the can down the road? They're building multiple mechanisms here. We talked about it a few weeks ago. The way they're going to track MAID deaths is going to change, I believe, starting next year. Rather than check it off on the box as a MAID death because the percentages are far too high and they're getting international attention. If you have a problem with your liver, it's going to be liver failure. If it's a problem with something else, they're going to tag the death as that rather than requested MAID. So that's going to dramatically lower the perceived cases to the rest of the world, although the actual cases are going to skyrocket through the roof. They're just going to do a bunch of jiggering with the statistics.
So now we won't won't be 100% sure or we won't be able to trust the statistics 100%, and that we might see that those lowering for May numbers, but it might just be because, again, they changed the way that they document that death.
Well, they used the same tactics during the jibby jab era as well.
But in reverse.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Global Politics says Guilbeault expected to quit Liberal caucus as early as Wednesday, sources say.
Yeah, and I think he has an extremely, extremely safe seat, meaning once he's out, if there's a by-election, another Liberal is going to get in there. Him and Krista Freeland had extremely safe seats. That's the issue with these tent pole Liberal figures stepping down. They always have the safest seats.
Mm-hmm. So it might just be a rearranging of furniture.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, we've talked about it quite a bit. Surprisingly, on the surface, they had a lot of conflict, him and Mark Carney, but behind the scenes, he has been one of the biggest assets to get a lot of the different coalitions of communities that Mark Carney kind of needs. He's kind of leading that now, and he's bringing them back to the Liberal Party. So as much as on the surface as it looks like there's tension between Guilbeault and Carney, behind the scenes, he's been a big asset, and a lot of people didn't know that. That's recently leaked out.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, man. And lastly, from Brand75 says, quote, EU parliamentarians in Canada to discuss the digital euro and crypto. I'm sure it's nothing.
Well, and he has an accent and it's really diluted here, but this is very concerning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Joanna Smith with The Logic. The second speaker, sorry, you mentioned you were interested in what Canada's doing on crypto. Can you be more specific about what you're looking for there?
There is also interplay between the crypto and the digital currency. As you may know, we are very close to the vote in the European Parliament that I believe will start the process of introducing the digital euro. But obviously, there are also some opinions that...
And all the framework has already been worked. All the legislation has already been passed. It's just a formality to bring this in. It's also a CBDC within, or yeah, a CBD... No.
Central bank digital currency.
Yes, central bank digital currency within the EU, meaning it's completely programmable and it gives the maximum amount of control and tracking over its citizens. A stablecoin gives a little bit less. A stablecoin also I don't like, but that's the direction they seem to be going.
I would say that stablecoins can play a very important role in improving the efficiency of the payment system and especially opening efficient ways how to, for example, do international transaction. Here with our Canadian friends, we were also discussing that European angle that is very much focused on the security of retail payment because unlike in Canada, in Europe, we don't have the other than American-dominated retail payment systems for retail transactions. And for example, when the US have introduced sanctions on the judges from the International Court for Justice, these people were cut off from the payment. And this is, unfortunately, in this uncertain world, how we see that our security can be compromised. So unlike in Canada, we see the digital euro also not only as the way how to provide the economy with effective way of the retail payments, but also as to secure our sovereignty.
And note there how he'd use the 1-2 punch. Usually they use one argument or the other. Here he's using both. He's using the security issue. Oh, it's going to be safer. It's going to be better. But also the improvement of infrastructure and the improvement of how the technologies can better people's lives and make everything more efficient.
This is about complete control over the citizens. Make no mistake, especially when you dig into the documents of the EU specifically. It's the most authoritarian framework of anywhere in the world.
But what I was getting to is these are the excuses they always bring up, so we might start seeing them more in Canada as well.
In other areas concerning the crypto, there will be still quite a few things that we would like to exchange the opinions. For example, the issue that is frequently discussed in the European Parliament and also with the Commission Council is multi-issuance of the stablecoin. You know that we were one of the first ones who introduced kind of comprehensive the regulation, so-called MiCA in this area, but we have to constantly look around if we are on the best possible.
And they don't know what to do with the stablecoin because it was supposed to be a CBDC that they had complete control over, and Donald Trump has undermined their entire system with these stablecoins, which introduces a second form of digital currency, which the EU has very little control. That's why they're saying they're trying to bring massive regulations onto stablecoins.
And, Glengun, mostly Glengun talking. Glengun says, not going to happen, still have flip phone, I'm guessing, and says, I can't go there. Daryl, system is wrecked. And Glenn says, I agree with Made, but not that. Glenn also says another dumb bum, and also says my hero for having that operation that guys have that really don't want to have. So they can have more dumb bums. No idea what that means. Justin GP,
I think
hello.
it's the vasectomy he was talking about.
Okay.
Maybe. That's what I got from it.
Justin GP says, hi, Nat and Guy and folks. Another great show. Started late, so watching at 1.8. LOL. Finally caught up. Thank you for being here.
And I watch everything at 2-point speed.
Yes, and which I don't like because I can never understand what they're saying.
If we watch something together, I'm forced to slow it down, and it's
forced.
Yeah.
You're
I have
forced.
trouble watching movies now because I watch everything in at 2 times speed.
It just annoys me, and you can't really fully grasp or understand what people are saying. Hold on. KP4U says, no, hold on. Christo says, was talking to my lady one day while she had a YouTube video playing on her phone. Next recommendation she got from her app was related to our conversation.
Yeah. The phones are obviously listening to us. The TVs as well. A lot of people don't know
Yes.
the TVs all have listening devices, and a lot of them have cameras in them
Well,
as
the thing is, it's not listening devices. What the TVs do, because I just watched something about this, what the TVs do, a lot of the smart TVs, is there's a way to turn it off. I'll try to look it up and talk about it tomorrow again. But what they do is that they take a screenshot of whatever you're watching every X amount of milliseconds.
No, it has listening devices as well, and I can prove it to you
I know,
because every single remote, it's not only in the TV,
But that's not what I'm talking
it's in the remote as well. What you're saying, what you just said was the TVs don't have listening devices. Actually, the remote and the TV does now.
Okay, but what I was getting at is that the mechanism that they use to be able to measure and see what you're watching, to be able to either recommend or put you into different ad buys or do more nefarious things, is they take a picture every other millisecond of whatever you're watching to compile essentially a data set on you and whatever you're watching and whoever you are to share with not just streaming services, YouTube, etc., but also with advertisers. But if somebody can get that hold of that information, then they have an entire profile of what you watch and what you consume.
I would say it's way more nefarious than that. It has nothing to do with advertising. I would say it has everything to do with the government. That's what you just gave was the propaganda, sanitized propaganda.
But that's how
line
the mechanism works. That's all I wanted to explain.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue on here.
So when we say they're watching what you're watching, yes, they literally are watching what you're watching. That's all I wanted to get at. Glenn Gunn says, I guess we're all going green. Yes, and thank you so much to Teresa Freedom for that as well. Luke Couture says, I already lost thousands of dollars in crypto over the past 10 years. I never really trusted it, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, I've never invested in it. I always like gold and silver, especially silver, because it's used in technology.
Charlotte says, the Internet of Things, dystopian, and again, not financial advice. But yes.
But I will say one way to get large sums of money over borders and things like that is through cryptocurrency. If you buy it and then cash it out right away, you'll have some risk. But if you're transporting any kind of money from one country to another,
financial advice.
They can confiscate it at airports and everything else now.
Yes. Glenn Gunn says, yes, Nat. It asks me if I'm still watching. Yeah, true. Harmony, hello, Harmony says, I haven't had a TV for 25 years or more. Most of the things I watch now, I just watch on my phone.
Yeah, and even on our
around.
TV, it's everything through the internet.
Yeah. Dollar Robinson says, Carney NWO Sustainable Goals, Canada bills following it exactly. Yep. Canada's bills following it exactly. And Terry Labiage says, threw the TV away after 9/11. Oh. And Harmony says, surveillance also on the computer. Surveillance everywhere. Essentially, there's cameras all over the streets as well. KG Kennedy says, to say they work for the people, then steal or take legal rights away to have a referendum. While Quebec had two. Yeah, we're having our referendum and we will not vote out. And we will vote out nationalists that have no idea. Alberta, let's go now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And that's why we need both plans going right now. I know I talked about this at the beginning of the show. We need a long-term plan because it looks like Carney's plan and Danielle Smith's plan is to stretch this thing out over a year and a half, 2.5 years, maybe even more. We need to take over the UCP so we can stop their delaying tactics by having political power ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean ousting Danielle Smith before October 19th. Nobody's suggesting that. Even Mitch Sylvester wasn't suggesting that. I watched his interview today. What he is saying is we need to buy memberships, take over the UCP, so whoever we put in there is an independence loyalist. And then we also need to go towards October 19th. And Mitch Sylvester said very clearly he's focused in on October 19th now. And so all these little groups have the same goal and we're all focused on the same thing right now. So it's looking good.
True. Now let's go into Alberta and the world. And, oh, sorry, I left the job. And starting with Nadine Wellwood saying, quote, NATO has outlived its usefulness, and watch the full video, but let's see what Nadine says and fully agree with that.
Yeah, and this is absolutely true. I've been calling for the end of NATO for years now, well before this was any kind of talking point in any kind of intellectual circles.
We have a full
People
video
thought it was
about it on the
crazy when I
channel.
was talking about it, and I was like, NATO's the entire reason we're marching towards World War III. They want to reset their economic system.
We do have a whole video about this on the channel too, but go watch Nadine's as well.
I think NATO has long outlived its usefulness, personally.
Okay, silver lining in all this is that the whole mess that's resulting from that conflict is probably going to end up undoing NATO. It's probably going to end up undoing the European Union. It's probably going to end up undoing the petrodollar and eurodollar system, which are the key mechanisms of hegemony for the global empire.
When NATO got, everybody kept pushing for Ukraine to become a part of NATO. I went, oh, you can't do that. Ukraine has to be like neutral territory, and Russia. And if you understand the Monroe Doctrine, if you understand history at all, Russia can't tolerate a nuclear, superpower on its border, no different than the United States was willing to accept a nuclear superpower on its. And I think NATO has long outlived its usefulness, personally. I think, since 1990, 91, when, Russia fell and the Warsaw Pact ended, I think NATO should have ended with it. And that was, I think, the original plan, the discussion. NATO would not move any further towards, Russian territory and move any further east.
Yeah, and Donald Trump was doing a good job at dismantling the EU and NATO and all these organizations that just are a globalist agenda hotspot. The problem is Mark Carney has kind of stepped in there, and now he's having to deal with Carney. So it's taking him a little longer to kind of deal with the EU as well.
But again, that is the way that they were implementing everything that they wished and dreamed, and the new world order that they wanted to continue to sustain and embolden. And since Trump, but since others as well have started to reject that, now they're panicking. But I think that they might try to strengthen the mechanism even further. That's why there's so much talk about Canada joining the EU and Canada and the Euro, etc.
Yeah, Donald Trump has debanked them. A lot of the money was coming through USAID, and it was coming through mechanisms through the US into all these three-letter agencies and through NATO and through the EU and stuff like that. Donald Trump has cut a lot of that off, almost all of it, but I mean, it's going to take him some more time. The problem is they're looking for somebody else to bankroll it, and they're looking at Canada, bringing Canada and the EU closer at the same time. Mark Carney is trying to federalize natural resources.
Maybe use them to pay off other people's debts. Again, eventually with socialism,
but they're not looking to pay off debts. They're looking to build their own
themselves off.
No, they're looking to build a military and become a world superpower again.
Yes.
Because they thought they had the U.S. under their thumb, and that was their military arm for so long.
Konstantin Kinsin says, quote, the world is not a safe space. FYI, nobody knew. The liberal world order didn't survive because everyone agreed with it. It survived because the West was strong enough to defend it. Meanwhile, the Europeans are busy debating whether free speech is too offensive, while China, Russia, and the rest of the world are playing for power. Weakness is not a virtue, it's an invitation.
When we talk about the liberal global order that's prevailed since the 1940s, it's prevailed because America has been strong enough to make sure it prevails.
Absolutely. And believed in its values, even if you don't like them, right? They believe in freedom of speech. Europeans believe in restricting people's speech so that no one's offended. That's at a governmental level, right? At the moment. That's who you're choosing between. If you're choosing between America, the American administration believes in free speech and is prepared to accept sometimes very unpleasant costs that come with free speech, right? The Europeans want the opposite, right? That's the choice, right? And so this is a question of values.
Well, that's right. But there's an even bigger choice that I'm alluding to, and that is that if America loses its global dominance, what will the new global order look like?
That's what I'm saying, right? Our values are better than the values that would be in place of those values if we were not the strongest civilization. So being strong has to be one of our values. So it sort of makes sense, doesn't it? And so, this idea that we should walk around and sort of keep ourselves small and, we have this weird thing. I know it's a British thing. Maybe this is a sign that I haven't fully integrated, but we have a debate in this country every time the prime minister of the country goes to some global summit on a big plane. And everyone's like, oh no, he's spending government money. I'm like, no. What you think Xi Jinping arrives on a megabus? This is a game. There's a game being played here, and people will treat you depending on how powerful they perceive you to be. And human beings are very shallow. And if you've got a big plane with the name of your country on it, people tend to respect that. Especially people who are not Western and don't have this moronic ideology, where the stronger you are or appear to be, the worse you are as a human being. They don't have that. Xi Jinping doesn't think like that, nor does Vladimir Putin, nor do most people in the world. I think you'd back me up on this, John.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Having dealt with people in different governments around the world.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. We don't want braggarts, but on the other hand, we don't want our leaders to look like they're not respected or respectable.
No, on an international stage, I think of them kind of like our champion in a battle, right? Do you want somebody who is strong and capable in that role, or do you want someone who's not, as the Americans had at the last election? I think it's as basic a choice as that, frankly.
Oh, men talking about their big planes.
Well, we will say the EU has just been, and Canada and a lot of these other countries were weakening the U.S. and they have to build up strong again. Otherwise, you're going to see a transfer of world power. And I don't want to see China in that position. So the U.S. really still holds a lot of those Western values when it comes to free speech and other things. It's a shame that these other Western countries are starting to adopt the Chinese models day by day by day, and they're uniting with each other, whether it's Canada and the EU or Australia and the EU and things like this.
And also, a lot of the Western countries have forgotten that might makes, because they themselves have castrated themselves as to how much power they want to project, because they've swallowed this socialistic liberal ideology, progressive ideology, saying that power and dominance is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But however, if you lose that power and dominance, then another more powerful and more dominant now than you, either country or mechanism, will step in and take over, and you might not like it as much as you think.
Okay, let's go into FIFA, and this was an interesting one that I found.
Sorry, I forgot we had. Oh, yes. City News Vancouver says, quote, "The city of Vancouver has issued its human rights plan as the FIFA World Cup approaches."
And click into it. I think I had grabbed the wrong one, but hopefully it's the same headline. And if it's not, I remember it very closely.
Let me just get past all the... yes, I know. Hold on.
And just bring it up while you go through it for the audience so they can see.
City News says, Vancouver says camping overnight in parks will still be allowed during World Cup.
Yeah, they're turning Vancouver into a homeless encampments for the FIFA World Cup, and it's only going to get worse during that. A lot of people don't know about downtown Vancouver. They don't have enough hotels when there are major events. The FIFA World Cup is going to be one of the biggest events. The hotels are going to be full. People will literally be sleeping in the parks. And I believe it's during the summertime, so it's good weather at that time.
Says the city of Vancouver has issued a human rights plan for the FIFA World Cup that begins next month, saying people who are homeless will still be able to shelter in parks overnight, but structures will have to be removed in the daytime under pre-existing rules, which nobody follows.
Okay, we can kind of leave it there. I just wanted to bring up that they're still approving homeless encampments in Vancouver.
And making sure that they can stay.
But they take them down during the daytime now, so the general tourists don't see it. Normally, they just stay up all year round.
Yes. Vancouver. But now we're going to your comments, and then we'll head over to RUMBLE. Glenn Gunn says, everything on the net. Yes, dystopic. Ghost of a Chance says, Danielle is clearly a decarbonized Ottawa puppet.
Yeah, and I think everybody's starting to see it now. And she works one thing, tries to sell it the best she can to the independence crowd, and then Mark Carney builds the next hurdle. Well, she campaigns on that and then builds the next one to stretch the timeline out. That's what they're trying to do here. They're also building federalization mechanisms. They're building in digital ID, digital currency. All this stuff is going to be coming soon. How hard do you think it's going to be to escape then?
Mm-hmm. Glenn Gunn says, so true, NATO is stupid. Yes, it is. Sean says, hello, Sean. Says, people forget Soviet Union put nukes in Cuba because USA put them in Turkey.
Yeah. And nobody wants nukes on their border. There was 57 biolabs, which were phase 3 biolabs within Ukraine, all on the border with Russia. Like, it didn't look good. I was talking about that a lot. Those videos got highly censored at the time, but I was shocked there was that many phase 3 biolabs.
And again, and exactly, Sean, a lot of people, I mean, not put blame on one or the other, but a lot of people forget the first half of the story you brought up. Ghost of a Chance says the United Soviet Socialist Republic does not exist anymore. Get over it. Exactly. And then they're still pretending like Russia, and they're still running scared, and it seems like they're still living in that era for some reason. Glenn Gunn says...
Well, the one good thing is... Oh, no.
Glenn Gunn says, Sanji, I know a gal mid-50s, moved there. She loves it. Oh, I think I'll get to your question, Sanji, in a bit. Ghost of a Chance says, $25 billion to a meat grinder I did not vote for. Glenn Gunn says, so true, Ghost. Exactly. And Ghost of a Chance says, which one? The RCMP? Glengon says, we ended our animals back on the farm. They were more pets than feed animals, still ate them. And Goes Chan says, for fun, a local hockey team is called the Castro Raiders. I got that. I don't know if the guy would have gotten that one. Yes. Harmony says, I bought my UCP membership about 2 weeks ago, and you should also. Yes. Well done, Harmony. KG Kennedy says, when you understand the UN are terrorists, it all comes together. Exactly. And the mechanisms that they use as well. Sanjali says, hello, peeps. Hello. And also asks Nat and the guy, how is it living in Mexico? I need options. And I've explained it a few times, but I am originally from here. I grew up my whole life here. So all my roots, everybody I know is down here. And then I lived in Vancouver for 13 years and then came back. But I guess you're better to answer this question because you're from Canada.
Yeah, I think the price is going up. I know a lot of retirees that are living off of their CPP say they can't afford it and they're forced to move back after a certain amount of time. That being said, there's other options other than Mexico as well. I like it, but I like it because I'm with my wife. If I didn't have my wife, I don't know if I would like it. I'm not too good at learning a second language as well.
And we also don't live anywhere really touristy. We don't live full on in Mexico City. We live close by. And again, it's an area and a place I've known my whole life. So I think it is different than if you're moving in as a full outsider as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's other options as well. Again, we always mention El Salvador just because of the radical change that has been made there and the amount of people that have moved there. Also being clear that the locals, and someone in my Spanish channel is Salvadorian and always used to say, yes, it's great for the tourists, but the locals aren't that happy with the tourists anymore that are moving here and making housing prices go up.
Cost of living is going way up. And if you do move into expat communities, the cost of living is a lot higher as well in any country. The good thing about Central and South America now is they begin to make that hard right-wing turn, and a lot of the governments are headed in the right direction now, except for Mexico and Brazil.
I was going to say, funnily enough, Mexico is not one of those, not until 2030.
Yeah. But she's cooperating with Trump for the economic good of Mexico. So even though she's a leftist ideologue, it could be a lot worse. She could be Mark Carney.
Harmony says, just had Alberta beef and grass-fed spinach cabbage rolls for supper.
Oh, God, that sounds great.
As Anjali says, I'm worried about the cartels.
Yeah, and like if you're outside of tourist areas in certain places, I guess it's something to be concerned about. Carney and Sheinbaum are addressing the issue behind the scenes radically. Trump and Sheinbaum are addressing that issue a lot. There's a lot of cooperation going on with the military, but it's going to take a few years to actually really affect change there. He's also affecting change in the same way with military cooperation in Central and South America. You're seeing big changes right now.
And again, I will say a lot of it might be exacerbated, and unfortunately, a lot of the ones that suffer the most are the locals and the local people, not so much the tourists and the expats and etc., especially if they're living in enclaves or areas where it's tourists or expats only, because there's kind of an unspoken rule that you really don't go into there unless it's like a one-off thing, or if not so much cartel, but just regular violence in a way, or like robberies, etc. That does still happen. But as it happens in Vancouver and many other places around the world. And again, I will say as a local, I do kind of already know where to and where not to go and how to handle and deal with these things. But within Mexico City as well, there's not that much activity because it is the biggest hub. I mean, yes, it is. Yes, there is violence, but not as bad. Sanjali also says, Stephen the Climate Nut is resigning. Party time.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, but I will say he's a huge asset for Carney behind the scenes. I guess all that conflict they were having above the surface, he's one of the biggest supporters on getting other members in line for Mark Carney. So he could definitely just be failing up or going to an international spot.
Hold on. Chocolate says, Harmony says, get rid of the UN as well while we're at it.
Oh, yeah.
Chocolate says, the 80 million a game soccer tourney. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in each country, they're having issues with the FIFA thing. So, I mean, at least they divided it amongst three, but it seems to be working out even worse for each country.
The US is having the least amount of trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hold on. Here they're painting the whole city purple for some stupid reason. Sean, but not fixing things. They're just painting over the things that are already broken. Sean says, Nat, say the magic words, new world.
Order.
And hopefully YouTube doesn't understand it when I say it like that. Glenn Gunn says, Nana the guy, I really want to keep the temperature down with a little humor. Hope that's okay. Not too close to the pyramids.
There's pyramids all over Mexico City. I mean, all over Mexico, even in places where people don't know there's pyramids, there's jungle. They've done radio scans and stuff like that. And man, there is pyramids all over here.
A lot of them undiscovered. And again, when they were rebuilding, when the Spaniards were building up the cathedral and stuff like that, and in the center of what is now the central city square in Mexico City, they didn't know that they were building the cathedral. Well, they knew, but they were building the cathedral on top of a big pyramid, the main pyramid. And then when they were doing reparations for the subway, they actually found the whole temple, the major temple, it's called.
Yeah, it used to be able to walk on almost all the pyramids. Then during COVID, they changed that policy.
COVID. Sean says, Ecuador is always the big place for retired expats. And now even more so. Anna Yazinski says, hi, Nat and Guy. Hello, says, I just started watching you yesterday. Amazing channel. Thank you so much. And Sanjali asks, so is Guy Albertan?
No, I was actually born in British Columbia, and then I met you there when you moved up there. And I lived half my life.
A while after I lived there.
I lived half my life in the United States, but then moved back to Canada later on. But Trudeau stepped over every single red line, and we just needed to flee the country at that point. There was no critical mass of people like in Alberta that will vote for independence and actually stand up to the federal government and the globalists. In British Columbia, everybody's just go along to get along. Nobody's willing to stand up.
But even when we were making plans to leave or looking at where to go, there was no real fervor behind Alberta independence either. So we weren't fully aware of it at the time. If it would have been at this point, of course, we would have, I think, looked over there first and as a first stop. Sean says Mexico City hates Americans coming speaking English, even though they speak English.
Yeah, because Americans are different than Canadians as well. Like, because I lived half my life in the United States, I know the different behaviors. And because I was security in a bar, the loudest person in the room is almost always an American. And that's why it's off-putting to a lot of foreigners and things like that.
Mexicans are loud.
That being said, I don't mind it because I grew up in America. I like the directness, even though they might be a little louder. I prefer the directness rather than the politeness, and you don't know what's really on somebody's mind. That's a lot of Canadians.
Anna Yazinski asks, do you have Buy Me a Coffee? No, but we do have memberships open on the channel. So if for people that did want to support us on a more monthly basis, they can always do that as well.
Or we have super chats.
Or super chats, exactly. Sanjali says, are you both going to move to Alberta? We would love to have you both. Thank you so much.
We'll be coming up there. We wanted to film some documentaries and things like that. We're going to try to get remote interviews recorded first, and then on the ground interviews hopefully later. And then we want to do some speaking events up there as well. We hopefully be coming up there a few times.
Yes. Sanjali says, Stephen might be going to the Bloc Québécois. Did you see they were coaxing lips to cross the floor?
They're trying to get prepared to stop that Quebec independence movement. And it's
but they're forward.
What?
The Bloc Québécois.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. The PQ is actually the big separatist party.
Yeah, but now I understand what you were saying. They might be bringing in liberals to stop and putting mechanisms to stop the PQ.
And that's what they have been doing. The PQ's polling numbers have started slightly going down. They were projected to win. We'll have to see what happens now. It's really going to be a fight. I think the federal government's recognizing because of Alberta independence, we need to stop the PQ before the election.
Langan says soccer, most boring sport. It's football.
Yeah, I don't like soccer either.
And as a Mexican, I have to. So.
UFC, most exciting sport.
Yes, men rubbing against each other. Very exciting.
On now.
Harmony says, I heard about 6 months ago or so about El Salvador. I speak to my people when I go into the city. Otherwise, I'm happy with my own company, self-individualized, as Carl Jung would state. Sanjali says, Carney is trying to say that we need more than 50+1, and the Bloc was giving it to him today.
And again, I'm glad I haven't seen what they said, the PQ said today, or the Quebec parties said, but they need to push back because that was a absolutely ridiculous statement that he made.
Mm-hmm. Canadian Spider-Man says, Tikal, Machu Picchu, and Angkor Wat are my very favorite temple sites in the world. It would be great to see some of the unknown Mexican ones too.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we can do something about that.
We
Maybe
stay inside all the time.
If we ever get what's it called? Starlink, maybe
Yeah.
we could stream from one of the sites, but not get in trouble like Mr. Beast did. Glenn Gunn says there are so many in Mexico and in the South, yes, and there's a lot that many people don't even know about. Like there's the most famous ones, but there's a huge one in Puebla, in Cholula, that not many foreigners know about. It's the biggest pyramid in the world. It's even bigger than it's almost as big as the pyramids in Egypt.
No, it's bigger.
Oh, bigger.
By size. I was watching a documentary on it the other day.
Okay,
that being said, I was going to say something. You were babbling on for too long there, Nat.
Sanjali says the PQ is a provincial party. The Parti Québécois. Lucatur says Stephen should just take the $200 million he already scammed and disappear.
Yeah, but provincial parties are very important as well because they're the ones that can enact a lot of the things.
Sanjali says, I hope they help Alberta's independence movement. And they already kind of have when they stood up already in the House and said, no, it's 50+1. Don't go crazy.
Yeah.
And they might have to do it again. Chocolate Eyed asks, Lucatur, where exactly did Climate Barbie's billion go? Climate Barbie's billion go, exactly. Canadian Spider-Man says, I've seen all the tourist ones, but to see the unknown ones all around Mexico would be really incredible. One of the best countries I know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's a hidden history that I think has really been not talked about. And I think it's covered up globally. All these megalithic sites, they have no way to explain a lot of this stuff. I go into it. Nat absolutely hates it, but they can't even explain how a lot of these megalithic sites were built. They don't want to talk about the massive amounts of pyramids that actually lie within Mexico.
And elsewhere, but sure. Costa Machan says Teotihuacan. Yes, that is like the main one where the Pyramid of the Sun and the Moon are. We were there not that long ago, but also there was a shooting there. Human sacrifice, who knows how many millions of years after the last ones. Not millions, how many thousands of years after the last one. So who knows what they opened up over there when they did that. And Costa Machan says, I don't know what that means, but that's Puma Punka. No idea what that means. Troglodyte says Bigfoot built them, of course. Is that what you were getting at?
No, but there is portals you can see clearly.
Maybe I can throw you into one. Glenn Gunn says, Nat just mentioned it, Spider, it is the biggest mass in the world. Sanjali says, if Alberta doesn't get independence when my husband retires in 5 years, we are moving.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be starting to look at that. If we need to hurry this thing up. It can't last more than 2.5 years. That's the long timeline, and they're really trying to draw it out. They're currently trying to build in mechanisms to draw it out longer than that, and we need to get a control of the UCP, and that's why Mitch Sylvester has a good long-term plan to buy memberships. And he talked about that on the Western Standard, and he's definitely working towards October 19th right now.
And Ghost of a Chan says about Teotihuacan, Canadian tours was ended. Yeah, exactly. I think it was the only ending, but yeah. And Glenn Gunn says to Alberta.
Okay, and we're
guessing Sanjali meant away from.
And we're going to head over to RUMBLE right now. If you're not subscribed on this channel, please do so. We're a very small channel. We notice every subscriber. It is a big help. And we'll see you over there in about 5 minutes. There's a 30-second wait screen.
Hold on. KG Kennedy says, them civilizations are from the last time the Liberal NDP Green Party got into power and they all died or ran away. LOL. Okay, now we're heading over to our UMBL. You see there, 30-minute wait screen, and then we pop
30-second wait screen, sorry.
30-second wait screen, and then we pop on up over there.
Let's get ready.